Beneath the ocean off the coast of Japan there is something that should not exist. A massive structure sitting on the seafloor with giant steps, sharp edges, and perfectly flat terraces that looks exactly like a sunken pyramid. It has been sitting there silently in the dark water for thousands of years, and nobody can agree on what it is. Some say it is the remains of a lost civilization, older than the pyramids of Egypt. Others say nature built it by accident. What I am about to tell you might change how you see human history forever. This is the story of the Yonaguni Monument. It sits about 25 meters below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, just off the southern tip of a tiny island called Yonaguni. This island is the westernmost point of Japan, only about 111 kilometers from Taiwan and over 2,000 kilometers from Tokyo. It is one of the most remote islands in the entire Japanese archipelago. And yet right here in these isolated waters hides one of the most controversial discoveries of modern times. Now stop and think about this for a second. This structure is absolutely massive. We are talking roughly 150 meters long, 40 meters wide, and 27 meters tall. That is taller than a 7-story building just sitting there on the ocean floor. Its surface is covered in broad terraces and wide steps that rise in tiers with edges so straight and angles so sharp they look like they were cut with precision tools. When you see photographs of it, your brain immediately screams that a human being made this. But the ocean has guarded this secret for a very long time. The monument was discovered in 1986 by a local scuba diver named Kihachiro Aratake. He owned a dive center on Yonaguni and was out scouting for new dive sites, hoping to find hammerhead sharks which migrate through the area every winter. Instead, he stumbled onto something far more incredible. Below the surface, he came across these enormous stone formations with terraces, straight edges, and right angles that looked like ancient architecture. He was so stunned he called it the underwater Machu Picchu. That nickname stuck, and soon the discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community in Japan, and eventually the entire world. Here is what makes this discovery so explosive. A marine geologist named Masaaki Kimura from the University of the Ryukyus spent over 2 decades studying this structure. He dove on it hundreds of times. He mapped every surface, every edge, every angle. And he became absolutely convinced that this was not natural. He believed it was carved by human hands thousands of years ago. Kimura claimed he could identify specific features within the monument, including what he described as a pyramid castles, roads monuments, and even a stadium. He pointed to carved channels that looked like a drainage system, holes that could have held pillars and markings on the walls that he believed resembled an ancient script called Kaida, which was once used in the southwestern islands of Japan. But that is not even the wildest part. Kimura initially estimated the monument to be at least 10,000 years old. His reasoning was based on sea levels. During the last ice age, sea levels were dramatically lower than they are today by about 100 meters or more. That means 10,000 years ago, the spot where this monument sits would have been dry land. If humans built this structure, they would have done it on solid ground before the rising seas swallowed it whole. If that dating is correct, the Yonaguni Monument would be older than the Great Pyramids of Giza by about 5,000 years. Older than Stonehenge, potentially one of the oldest monumental structures ever created by human hands on this planet. Now I need to tell you about the people who might have built it, because this is where the story gets even more fascinating. There is only one known prehistoric culture that was living in the Japanese archipelago at the right time. They are called the Jomon. The Jomon period stretches all the way back to roughly 14,500 BCE, making it one of the longest continuous cultural periods in human history, lasting over 10,000 years. These people were not simple cave dwellers. They were complex hunter-gatherers who developed the first pottery on Earth, with some examples dating back an incredible 16,500 years. They built permanent settlements with dozens of pit dwellings. They constructed large buildings with massive timber pillars. They built stone circles for rituals. They made elaborate clay figurines called dogu. They traded obsidian and jade across vast distances using dugout canoes. Their culture was so sophisticated that scholars now classify them as complex hunter-gatherers, comparable to the advanced prehistoric societies of the Pacific Northwest. And here is the crucial connection. Human skeletal remains have been found in caves throughout the Ryukyu Islands dating back 32,000 years. That proves humans were absolutely present in this region at the time the monument would have been above water. If the Jomon or their ancestors carved this structure out of the natural rock, It would mean that organized monumental construction began far earlier than mainstream history currently accepts. But I have to be fair and give you the other side of this debate, because not everyone is convinced. The most prominent critic of the man-made theory is geologist Robert Schoch from Boston University. Schoch actually dove the site multiple times, personally chiseling off rock samples for analysis. And after careful study, he concluded that the monument is most likely a natural formation. His argument centers on the type of rock the monument is made of. It is composed of sandstone and mudstone from the Yaeyama group, deposited roughly 20 million years ago. Schoch pointed out that this sandstone contains well-defined parallel bedding planes where the layers naturally separate into flat surfaces. The rock is also crisscrossed by sets of parallel vertical joints, which are natural fractures that create rectangular shapes. Combine that with the fact that Yonaguni sits in an extremely earthquake-prone region where seismic activity regularly fractures rock in clean geometric patterns, and you can start to see how nature could theoretically produce something that looks artificial. Schoch also made another important observation. On the northeast coast of Yonaguni, above water on dry land, there are rock formations that look remarkably similar to the underwater monument. Flat faces, sharp edges, stair-like steps, all formed by the same geological processes without any human involvement. A separate study in 2019 by researcher Takayuki Ogata used digital elevation models and field investigations to analyze rock formations at 3 locations on Yonaguni Island. The conclusion was that the monument is a natural feature formed by weathering and erosion acting on the bedding planes and linear joints of the sandstone. But here is why the debate refuses to die. The supporters of the man-made theory fire back with some powerful counter-arguments. Graham Hancock, a researcher who has spent decades investigating lost civilizations, argues that while individual features of the monument can be found in natural sandstone formations around the world, the concentration of so many unusual features crammed into such a small area is statistically improbable. Supporters also point to the flat terraces of the monument, which are suspiciously clean. If natural erosion and fracturing created those steps, you would expect to find piles of loose rubble and broken rocks scattered across the flat surfaces, but divers report that the terraces are remarkably clear of debris. Then there are the specific features that are very hard to explain away. Divers have documented what appears to be a massive stone arch or gateway made of huge blocks that seem to fit together perfectly. There are 2 round holes about 2 feet wide on the edge of a triangular pool feature. There is a straight row of smaller holes that looks exactly like the marks left by wedge tools used in ancient quarrying techniques. There is a rock formation that looks like a giant turtle when viewed from above, so convincing that multiple divers and researchers have noted it independently. And there is a carving on the side of one of the formations that some interpret as a crude face, similar to the famous Moai statues of Easter Island. Kimura himself claimed to have found markings that resemble the Qaeda script, though critics dismiss these as natural scratches made by underwater erosion. There is also a middle ground theory that is gaining traction. Even Schoch himself has admitted that while the structure is primarily natural, he cannot rule out that it was modified or used by ancient people. On the island of Yonaguni itself, there are old tombs and stone vessels of uncertain age, carved directly from bedrock, demonstrating that ancient people in this region absolutely had a tradition of working with a natural stone. It is entirely possible that a prehistoric culture discovered this naturally striking formation when it was still above water, and then carved it, enhanced it, and used it for ceremonial or communal purposes. This is not unprecedented. Ancient civilizations around the world, including the Inca and the Nabateans, regularly built upon and reshaped natural rock formations to suit their needs. One thing that makes this mystery so frustrating is what has not been found. No artifacts such as tools or pottery have been recovered from the site that would definitively prove human activity. There are no written records or oral histories from the region describing an ancient city or temple in this location. And neither the Japanese Agency for Cultural Affairs nor the government of Okinama Prefecture officially recognizes the monument as a cultural artifact. No government-funded research or preservation has been conducted on the site. It remains in a strange limbo caught between geology and archaeology, with neither side able to deliver a knockout blow. And yet the Yonaguni monument continues to captivate the world. It has been featured in countless documentaries, debated on major podcasts, and visited by divers from every corner of the globe. The water around the site is incredibly clear, with visibility stretching 50 to 60 meters, and on a good day, divers describe the experience as feeling like they are flying over the ruins of a lost world. Whether you believe it was built by ancient hands or sculpted by the blind forces of geology, there is no denying the raw power of standing before those massive steps and terraces and feeling the weight of a question that may never be fully answered. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet, and we have explored less of the seafloor than we have of the surface of Mars. If the Yonaguni Monument really is the remains of a 10,000-year-old civilization, then what else is hiding beneath the waves? What other cities, what other temples, what other evidence of forgotten peoples is sitting right now in the silent darkness of the deep, waiting for someone to shine a light on it? Yonaguni reminds us that history is not a closed book. It is an ocean, and we have barely dipped our toes